Something unbelievable is happening inside the Cleveland Browns facility, and no one can make sense of it. One quarterback is out there firing NFL-level missiles that have teammates stopping mid-drill, and the other is struggling just to stay upright when someone brushes past him. Yet somehow, the coaches are acting like none of it exists. The moment leaked footage of Shedeur Sanders hit social media, everything changed. Fans watched him drop perfect spirals to Jerry Jeudy with the kind of timing and touch you don't expect from a rookie. Rumors suggest even veterans on the field were quietly stunned by how natural he looked. But while the internet exploded, the coaching staff stayed silent, almost too silent. Then came the Dillon Gabriel clips. Every stumble, every awkward rep, every bump that nearly knocked him over went viral instantly. Instead of addressing the obvious contrast, reports claim the staff doubled down, defending Gabriel's processing and leadership, while never mentioning the throws everyone else was obsessing over. That's when Cleveland media stepped in. Tony Rizzo and others went back through pressers and noticed something that only made things weirder. Kevin Stefanski hadn't said Shedeur's name in 8 straight interviews. Not once, not even by accident. At this point, fans are convinced something deeper is going on. Politics, stubbornness, or a quarterback plan nobody's willing to say out loud. But one question is building louder than all the speculation. If Shedeur is really playing like this, why hasn't he been given his shot? The chaos inside Cleveland didn't start with an injury, a scandal, or even a press conference slip-up. It started with a single leaked clip. A 12-second slice of practice that spread across social media like wildfire. In that short moment, Shedeur Sanders delivered a throw so clean, so perfectly placed, that fans immediately knew they were looking at something different. The ball left his hand with that effortless whip only the truly gifted have, cut through the air like it was guided, and dropped directly into Jerry Jeudy's stride without forcing him to slow down even half a step. But it wasn't just the throw that blew up online. It was the reaction on the field. Rumors suggest teammates literally paused their own drills to watch. One receiver in the background threw his hands up. A defensive coach turned his head like he couldn't believe what he just saw. These weren't routine reps. They were the kind of flashes that usually get quarterbacks fast-tracked in the NFL. Fans began dissecting every frame like it was Zapruder footage. They pointed out his feet, calm, balanced, controlled. They highlighted the anticipation, releasing before Jeudy even broke on his route. They slowed down the spiral, tight, efficient, zero wobble. This wasn't a rookie learning. This was a rookie thriving. And then came more clips, more throws, more "how is this guy not QB2 yet?" comments. Some clips even appeared to show receivers lobbying for him to get more reps. Nothing confirmed, just the buzz circulating online. But enough to build momentum. Yet as the hype grew louder, the silence from the Browns coaching staff grew even louder than that. No acknowledgement, no praise, no comment. It was as if the clip didn't exist at all. And that silence only made fans more suspicious. Because if Shedeur was this good behind the scenes, why was the organization acting like they didn't want anyone to notice? While Shedeur's practice clips were exploding across every corner of the internet, an entirely different kind of footage was surfacing. And this time, the reaction wasn't awe. It was confusion. Then disbelief. Then downright comedy. The first viral Dillon Gabriel clip didn't even involve a football. It showed him standing near the sideline, waiting for his rep, when someone merely walking past him brushed his shoulder. That tiny nudge sent him stumbling like he had been clipped by a blitzing edge rusher. Fans joked he moved like a shopping cart with a broken wheel. Others said he looked like a rookie NPC glitching in a sports video game. It wasn't cruel, but it was clear people were seeing something they didn't expect from an NFL quarterback. Then more clips emerged. Footwork that looked jittery, timing that felt off. Not terrible, not disastrous, just ordinary, safe, vanilla. Exactly the opposite of what fans were watching from Shedeur. The contrast became impossible to ignore. One quarterback looked like unnatural. The other looked like he needed the training wheels still attached. But what really fueled the fan outrage was how the coaching staff responded. Reports claim they defended Gabriel at every turn. They praised his processing. They praised his control of the offense. They praised his command in the huddle. Every buzzword, every cliche, every excuse, except actual on-field production. And still, not a single mention of Shedeur. That's when the comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Fans weren't angry at Gabriel. They were angry at the way the organization seemed determined to shape a narrative that didn't match what the video showed. Some began wondering if the staff had already chosen their starter months ago, no matter what happened in camp. Others speculated the team didn't want controversy by letting a rookie outshine their preferred option. But the biggest question growing louder every day was simple. If the difference is this obvious on camera, what does it look like behind closed doors? As the fan base grew louder and the viral clips kept spreading, the Cleveland sports media finally stepped in, and that's when everything shifted from strange to downright suspicious. Local reporters, especially those who've covered the Browns long enough to recognize when something feels off, began noticing details the average viewer wouldn't catch. It started small. A few journalists pointed out that Kevin Stefanski hadn't directly answered a single question about Shedeur. Not a comment about his progress, not a mention of his reps, not even the typical "he's developing well" line that coaches throw out to keep things calm. At first, people assumed it was just Stefanski being careful with his words, something he's known for. But then Tony Rizzo, one of the most respected and brutally honest voices in Cleveland sports, decided to dig deeper. He went back through every press conference from the last 2 weeks, 8 total, and found something almost unbelievable. Stefanski had not said Shedeur Sanders' name once, not accidentally, not in passing, not even when answering a question directly about the quarterback room. It was like Shedeur didn't exist. When Rizzo brought this up on air, fans lit up the phone lines. Some said it felt like the team was hiding something. Others thought they were trying to avoid QB controversy headlines. A few even joked that Stefanski was treating Shedeur like a forbidden word, the football version of "he who must not be named." Meanwhile, Mary Kay Cabot, known for her meticulous reporting, started dropping subtle hints online. She began sharing short practice observations, carefully worded, but clearly pointing to one fact: Shedeur was outperforming expectations. She never said it outright, but she didn't have to. Her tone alone told the story. A message from the media was becoming clear. This silence wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Fans were left wondering why, and what exactly the Browns were trying so desperately not to talk about. By this point, the silence surrounding Shedeur Sanders wasn't just strange. It was becoming the loudest part of the entire story. Fans could see the talent on video. Reporters could see the momentum building. Yet inside the Browns facility, the coaching staff seemed determined to pretend none of it was happening. And that behavior, more than anything, is what sent the situation into full-blown controversy. Kevin Stefanski, normally calm and controlled in front of the media, had shifted into a mode that felt noticeably guarded. When asked about the quarterback competition, he offered vague answers. When reporters brought up practice reps, he pivoted to generalities about team development. Even when directly questioned about the throws people were raving about, He responded with phrases so broad they felt rehearsed. It was careful, too careful. Then came offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, who took things a step further. Reports claim he spent an entire availability praising Dillon Gabriel for everything except his actual on-field production. Leadership, preparation, knowledge of the playbook. All important qualities, but none of them addressed what everyone had seen in practice. Through all of it, Rees avoided mentioning Shedeur, as if the topic didn't exist. Fans didn't miss the pattern. Why won't they say his name? Became the central question across social media. Some believed the staff had already made up their minds months ago, locking in Gabriel as their developmental project. Others speculated that the organization didn't want to create controversy by letting a rookie push too hard, too fast. But the most interesting theory came from longtime media insiders. The staff wasn't ignoring Shedeur because they doubted him. They were ignoring him because acknowledging his performance might force decisions they weren't ready to make. Decisions that would shake up their depth chart, their plans, and possibly their jobs. Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. The coach's silence was no longer just confusing. It was becoming impossible to justify. The simmering frustration around the quarterback situation didn't fully explode until fans saw what happened during real games. Moments where decisions weren't theoretical anymore, but actually shaped the outcome on the field. And unfortunately, for Dillon Gabriel, those moments painted a picture that even the most optimistic supporter struggled to defend. The first flashpoint came on a crucial 4th and 1, a situation where every coach, player, and fan knows exactly what needs to happen. Quick snap, simple handoff, move the chains. Instead, Gabriel held the ball too long, froze under pressure, and took a drive-killing sack that left even the broadcast crew speechless. It wasn't just a mistake, but it didn't stop there. With 12 seconds left in the half, no timeouts, and the Browns comfortably in field goal range, all he needed to do was spike the ball or throw it away. Instead, he hesitated, scrambled into trouble, and took another sack that nearly cost the team 3 free points. Only a chaotic, last-second scramble by the field goal unit saved the Browns from disaster. These weren't just rookie growing pains, at least not to fans watching at home. They were signs of someone struggling with the speed of the moment, the pressure of the situation, and the split-second processing NFL quarterbacks need to survive. And the more these clips were replayed, analyzed, and dissected online, the more uncomfortable the contrast with Shedeur's practice footage became. It wasn't personal. It wasn't malicious. It was simply impossible to ignore. One quarterback was making big-time throws. The other was making big-time mistakes. Even fans who genuinely liked Gabriel began asking the same question. If one player is clearly struggling under pressure and another is quietly thriving without being acknowledged, how much longer can the Browns pretend this isn't a real competition? By the time those game mistakes went viral, the mood in Cleveland wasn't just frustrated. It was volatile. Fans had gone from confusion to disbelief and finally to outright anger. Comment sections turned into full-blown debates, with people breaking down every throw, every rep, every coaching quote like they were analyzing a courtroom case. And once the contrast between Shedeur's flashes and Gabriel's struggles became impossible to ignore, the theories started pouring in. Some fans believed the coaching staff was simply being stubborn, afraid to admit they misread the quarterback room, or worried they'd create a media storm by elevating a rookie too fast. Others claimed the front office was pushing for certain players to succeed because of internal politics or long-term plans. Nothing confirmed, nothing proven. Just the kind of speculation that naturally forms when silence fills the gaps. Then came the more emotional theories, the ones that hit deeper. Rumors spread that veteran players were quietly confused about the pecking order. A few sideline clips circulated, showing receivers reacting differently depending on who threw the ball. Nothing dramatic, nothing openly rebellious, just small hints, the kind that made fans wonder if the locker room saw the same discrepancy the public did. Meanwhile, radio callers across Cleveland made it clear. They were tired of feeling like the team was ignoring the obvious in favor of a plan no one understood. What really poured gasoline on the fire was the growing belief that this wasn't just a quarterback issue. It was an organizational one. People started asking tougher questions. Why would a team avoid acknowledging their most promising young arm? Why would they double down on a narrative that didn't match the footage? And why did every silence, every deflection, every vague quote feel intentional? The tension around the Browns wasn't just rising, it was beginning to boil. When the confusion finally became too loud to ignore, one voice cut through the haze with a clarity Cleveland desperately needed. Tony Rizzo, a man who has survived decades of Browns chaos, collapses, rebuilds, and false promises, stepped up and said what thousands of fans were already thinking but couldn't prove. Rizzo didn't tiptoe around the issue. He went straight for the heart of the problem. The coaching staff's explanations no longer made sense. He pointed out the patterns, the silence, the contradictions, and the way the organization seemed to be bending reality to fit a storyline only they understood. And when he brought up the fact that Kevin Stefanski hadn't spoken Shedeur Sanders' name in 8 consecutive press conferences, it wasn't presented as a minor detail. It was framed as a giant red flag. On his show, Rizzo delivered a line that instantly went viral. Once a coach stops making sense, it's the beginning of the end. It wasn't sensationalism. It wasn't a hot take. It was the kind of blunt truth only someone who has watched this franchise spiral year after year could say with full conviction. One that felt shockingly plausible. He suggested that Stefanski might have hit that point in his tenure where the pressure, politics, and internal frustrations had worn him down. That emotional turning point where a coach stops protecting their own future and starts operating like someone who's already accepted their fate. The fire me if you want, I'm done fighting mentality. Fans didn't dismiss it. They recognized the signs, the flat body language, the vague answers, the guarded tone, the refusal to engage with the obvious quarterback discussion happening all around him. Whether true or not, Rizzo's interpretation struck a nerve. Because if a seasoned reporter believed the coach was checked out, what did that mean for the decisions being made behind closed doors? And more importantly, were those decisions really about football anymore, or something else entirely? By now, the situation in Cleveland has turned into something far bigger than a simple quarterback debate. It feels like a puzzle with missing pieces, a story where every leaked clip, every coach response, and every media reaction hints at something deeper happening behind the scenes. And the longer the silence continues, the more fans start crafting theories to explain what the organization refuses to say out loud. One possibility floating around is that the Browns committed early to a developmental plan with Dillon Gabriel and don't want to derail it just because Shedeur is flashing quicker than expected. That happens in the NFL. Coaches cling tightly to their original blueprints, even when new information challenges them. It doesn't make the plan right or wrong, but it does create tension. Another theory suggests the staff wants to protect Shedeur from being thrown into the spotlight too fast. Some believe the Browns fear a full-blown quarterback controversy, the kind that overtakes a locker room and fractures chemistry. Keeping his success quiet might be their way of easing him in without overwhelming expectations. Nothing verified, nothing confirmed. Just the kind of speculation that grows when communication disappears. But then there's the darker interpretation, that internal politics, not performance, are driving the decisions. Reports claim the front office has strong opinions about how the depth chart should look. Others think Stefanski's job security is shaping his choices more than he's willing to admit. And a few believe there's a disconnect between what the staff sees on the field and what they're allowed to say publicly. None of these theories exist in isolation. They exist because no one inside the building is offering a clear alternative. And so the central question only grows louder, more pointed, and more impossible to ignore. If Shedeur is truly performing at a level the fans, media, and even teammates can see, why is he still waiting for his moment? The Browns didn't ask for a quarterback controversy this offseason, but they've ended up with one that refuses to go away. Not because of headlines, not because of media pressure, and not because fans created a narrative out of thin air, but because the evidence keeps piling up in front of everyone's eyes. Clips, reactions, patterns, silence. Each piece small on its own, but together they form a picture that's impossible to ignore. What's happening in Cleveland feels less like a football decision and more like a story the organization hasn't figured out how to manage. One quarterback is showing flashes that turn heads on the practice field. Another is struggling in moments that matter. And the coaching staff has chosen a strategy of silence that only deepens the mystery instead of calming it. Whether it's caution, politics, stubbornness, or something much more complicated, no one outside the building knows for sure. What fans do know is this: every week, the Browns delay the inevitable conversation, the pressure grows heavier. Every time a reporter asks a direct question and gets a vague answer, frustration gets louder. And every time Shedeur drops another perfect spiral in practice while getting ignored publicly, the situation becomes harder to defend. But the biggest reason this controversy won't fade is simple: hope. The hope that the Browns might finally have a young quarterback with real upside. The hope that this time the flashes aren't a fluke. The hope that someone in the building sees what the fans see and is just waiting for the right moment. No one knows how long they can hold that moment back, because eventually, whether the coaches want it or not, someone is going to have to make a decision. And when that day comes, the entire league will be watching to see whether Cleveland finally embraces its future or lets it slip through its fingers once again.